Welcome to China Daily's online video cast. Today we are really honored to be here in the embassy to interview Mr. David Mulroney, Canadian ambassador to China. Thank you, Mr. Mulroney.
谢谢，我是马大卫，加拿大驻华大使，我非常高兴能有这个机会，欢迎你到我家来讲话。
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. So let's begin with your recent microblog. Now you have been a microblog star in China, and recently you have published a picture in your microblog about the car you have driven in China, the Camry hybrid, and attract huge public and media attention. So, what's your motive first to publish this like this?
You know, we launched our microblog the 6th of June, and since then we've done about 800, a little bit more than 800 tweets about Canadian life, education, tourism, but also about the embassy. And we've learned as we go what people are interested in. We get a lot of questions about the embassy, life in the embassy, what rules govern you, how much do things cost when you travel? Do you travel business or economy? In China, I travel economy. And what about, different things like cars? So we said, well, here's my car. And very often, instead of me explaining it, I can point to an actual website in Canada that has the guidelines. So in Canada, there are guidelines for the kind of cars that ministers and deputy ministers drive, how much money they can spend. So we directed them to that, told them that I drive a car, I drive a Toyota Camry, which is a hybrid. And one of the things that we're trying to do with our vehicle policy is to lower our carbon footprint and to have very fuel-efficient cars. And that's got lots of comments.
Yeah. So is it a publicizing campaign for your fleet management in Canada?
No, but we have a really interesting discussion with China, officially and unofficially, about issues of governance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's how we regulate our public services, how we deliver services. So we talk about all of these things on an official level and an unofficial level. And while we share our experiences, we also learn.
So why did you choose a hybrid car? Is it shipped directly from Canada?
This car it's from a dealer in Ottawa, and our guidelines require us to use a fuel-efficient car wherever we are. And so, these are recent guidelines of the last 2 or 3 years.
So is there any subsidies for using the hybrid car because it's generating less carbon dioxide? Right
now, in terms of sales subsidies, I don't think so. There's probably, you save on fuel. It requires less fuel. It's more fuel efficient.
So what kind of lessons can China and Canada draw from each other in energy saving and carbon emission control?
One of the areas that I think is of most interest for us is in smart building design. And that's an issue for Canada because, we're a cold country. We don't want to spend a lot of money heating our homes. We need to find materials and designs and, to a certain extent, use natural solutions to heat our homes. The Vancouver Winter Games were a good example of that. The design of many of the facilities that had to stay cold, such as the ice rinks, used natural things like shade to enhance the cooling effect. And those buildings that needed to be warmer used natural exposure to sun. Use of materials is also important, and obviously, as Canada, we're a big supporter of using natural materials like wood. So the smart design of buildings is important. Here in China, a lot of buildings are having new roofs put on them using Canadian lumber, and we think that's a smart solution.
Well, Canadian lumber. So Canada is a country for trees, symbols like the maple. I think there's another green ties for connecting China and Canada.
Last year our Canadian pavilion at the Shibohui in Shanghai was, the outside of it was Canadian red cedar. And I went to Expo many times, and sometimes I'd go just after a rain, and Chinese friends would say, "Oh, that smell of the cedar is very beautiful." So it's a very pleasing natural material, and we were very proud to use it at Expo.
And now Canada is now campaigning to attract more Chinese gas companies to develop in provinces like the British Columbia. And do you have any worries in ecological protection? Because if we have to exploit gas or oil, it may make some disturbance to the local ecological system. So how to balance pumping out oil and ecology?
The bulk of this investment is actually in northern Alberta. And we're seeing a lot of investment from China. There's investment from many countries, including Canada, the United States, and Europe, and Japan. But we're seeing new investment from China in this vast reserve of oil, which is trapped in sands in the northern part of the province. Where I think we're making the biggest advances is in finding ways to extract the oil and then over time restore the area to the state that it was in before we began the oil exploration. And there, the advances are dramatic and very exciting. So as important as the extraction of this is, we're continually looking at being able to restore the land to a condition that it was in before, including wetlands and bringing back, ensuring there are habitats for the animals, and also using as little energy as possible in extracting the oil from the sand. This is a big priority for us, and we're really making progress.
Okay. So recently, there are also businessmen in China who are really interested in investing in Canada, but they are complaining that we have trouble in having the visa because sometimes they are rejected. So do we have more plans to help attract Chinese businessmen?
When I came to China in 2009, we were issuing about 90,000 visas a year. Now, a little bit more than 2 years later, we're issuing more than 170,000 visas. So we've really increased the number of visas. What we offer is a 5-day turnaround, and we think that's one of the fastest turnarounds of any country that extends visas. Approval rates are over 80%, and for some of our categories of approved destination status travelers, it's over 95%. So the turnaround rates are very fast. We're very conscious of how busy people are, and we really work hard to meet those commitments. We also now have a special visa that can be valid for 10 years, multiple entry. And we think not many countries offer something like this. It's tremendously convenient for Chinese travelers, and I've spoken to some who have those visas now, and they're really excited about it. So we encourage people to explore that option.
Let's begin with like this. The visas,
Yes.
Sometimes the Canadian, maybe the embassy may have a worry about students or businessmen going to Canada. They may stay over time and we cannot go back. Does it affect the visa policies here?
No, we've had very good experience in China. Our main message is we'd like to have more Chinese students. We'd like to have more Chinese travelers coming to explore Canada, and we welcome Chinese business people because Canada is wide open for investment.
So the embassy in Mulroney had campaigned a lot by using the market blocks. And what's your most surprising findings by using the market blocks?
Well, one of the things we're doing is I think our embassy is leading other Canadian embassies, and that's because China is so advanced in the use of microblogs with hundreds of millions of users. So we're learning a lot from what's a very common experience in China. What we find is it's a great medium for reaching out to all of China. We only have offices in certain cities, but we're getting feedback from people in Yunnan and Heilongjiang and Xinjiang, places where we're not present. We also find that it's probably quite a young audience, and that's very important to us. It's a young audience that's interested in the world, interested in Canada. And maybe the most important thing is we get really good feedback, and quite frank feedback. Because normally in public settings, Chinese friends, like Canadians, are very polite, and they really give you a nice answer if you ask something. On the microblog, they're a little bit more direct. And that's actually very useful for us, because we listen very carefully to what we hear. If we're doing an event and we get feedback and people maybe didn't like the event very much, that enables us to change it and improve it. Because we need to understand what's on the minds of Chinese people and respond to that so that we can build the relationship. And I think the microblog is one of the most important tools that we have for doing that. I'm tremendously impressed by how it works in China and continually amazed by the innovation and the creativity that people are bringing to it. It's really exciting.
And the last question about China-Canadian and bilateral ties.
Yes.
So do you have any expectation on 2012? It's not a doomsday scenario. We're running the doomsday scenario, but can you have an expectation, any highlights in the coming new year?
We had our foreign minister visit a few months ago, and at the end of his visit in Shanghai, the former ambassador to Canada, Mr. Mei Ping, said he thinks that our objective should be to take the relationship to a new level. And 2012 will be all about taking the relationship to a new level, looking at the kind of framework of agreements and treaties and cooperative mechanisms that we have, growing the trade and investment relationship, and most importantly, building the people-to-people relationship. So more Chinese students, more Chinese visitors, but also more Canadians coming. And I think one really important thing is that I tell Canadian university presidents, increasingly, the focus for the educational exchange will move to China. And we need to be building our links and our partnerships with Chinese institutions with a presence here in China. So that's a message I bring to Canadians. I think that's very exciting, and it's something that we need to make progress on in 2012.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Very excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.